All right, let's talk about one of the single most critical functions in any organization, something that so many get wrong: choosing who gets to be on the team. It sounds simple, but this decision is everything.
So I want you to actually pause and think about this for a second. In your own company, who really decides who gets hired? The answer to that question? Well, it says a whole lot about your organization, and getting it wrong can be absolutely disastrous.
You know, for way too many businesses, the answer is kind of shocking. That super important task of interviewing and hiring, it just gets handed off to whoever happens to have a free hour. That's not a strategy. That's a gamble. We're calling it the just anyone approach.
Okay, so first, let's really unpack this anyone problem, because the cost of being this casual about hiring, it's way, way higher than you'd think.
It all boils down to a certain mindset, right? It's when managers see interviewing not as a high-stakes investment, but as, well, a chore. Just another annoying task to check off a to-do list. So they pawn it off on any available staff member, whether that person has any training or skill in assessing candidates or not. And when you put these two approaches side by side, it's pretty stark. The anyone approach treats hiring as just a delegated task, a time waster, where no training is needed. The result? You get poor culture fits, and you start to see real damage. The strategic approach, on the other hand, sees it as a critical function, an investment that requires expertise. This is how you guard your company's culture. The difference is night and day.
Okay, so if letting just anyone do the interviews is the problem, what's the solution? Let's pivot and talk about finding the right person for this incredibly important job.
This responsibility, it really should belong to people who have both experience and perspective. We're talking about senior or mid-level managers. And why them? Because they're the ones who really understand the company's long-term vision and, just as importantly, they have a ton of experience in, just reading people.
So why are they the perfect fit? Well, for one, they actually understand the big picture vision. They're experienced in assessing character, not just credentials. You could say they act as guardians of the company culture. They're able to see skills that don't always show up on a resume. And maybe most importantly, they're personally invested in the team's success. A great hire makes their job better and the entire company stronger.
But here's the thing. Having the right people is only half the battle. You absolutely have to give them a bulletproof system to work within. So let's talk about moving from just having the right people to having the right process.
To get real consistency and quality, you need a dedicated selection committee. And the ideal size for that is a focused group, somewhere between 6 to 10 people. This isn't a random pool of employees. Nope. This is a trained, designated team whose entire focus is on finding the very best talent. And the system is actually pretty straightforward. First, you form that committee. Second, and listen, this part is completely non-negotiable, you train them in specific techniques to see beyond the resume. Third, you standardize the interview questions and criteria so every single candidate gets a fair and consistent evaluation. And fourth, you have to protect the system's integrity, which means you never, ever use untrained substitutes. The golden rule is this: no untrained substitutes, period. If a trained committee member can't make it, you don't just grab someone from down the hall. You find another trained member to step in. The process has to be protected because the stakes are just that high.
So why go through all this trouble? It sounds like a lot of work, right? Well, it is. But getting this right is how you protect your company's most valuable asset and get to the ultimate payoff.
It really comes down to a core belief. A company that truly gets it doesn't view its people as an expense on a spreadsheet. It sees them as its most valuable asset. And when you believe that, every decision you make, especially hiring, flows from that fundamental idea. You protect and invest in what you value most.
And here's the bottom line. The best companies out there understand this to their core. Choosing your people, selecting for quality, for fit, for potential, that's not just an important factor. It is the single most important factor in whether an organization is going to succeed or fail. In the end, it really does determine everything.
So just remember this. Your company's future, it isn't built with marketing plans or financial models alone. It's built by the people you bring on board one person at a time. So the only real question left is, who are you trusting with the blueprint?